Hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of Table Fables. This one's going to be a little bit different because it's actually going to be an entire tournament report. I'm going to be talking about my performance at Grand Prix Brisbane in December 2019. So there's a bit of a backstory and a bit of lead up coming into this tournament, which is that I had played in a WPNQ at Wizard's Retreat a couple weeks before, and I'm playing this really sweet Rakdos Sacrifice deck, which I've been really enjoying. I actually had a pretty good record at this qualifier. I managed to get to top 8. My only loss was to Mo Pickleson playing Jeskai Fires. Then in the top 8 of this tournament, I got to the finals and faced Mo again, and lost to him again. So I lost the finals, and I missed out on qualifying for the Japanese Regional Players Tour, but that was fine. I was pretty happy with the result, and it really solidified to me that Rakdos Sacrifice is quite a good deck. So fast forward to the early weekend of December, and I'm pretty on the fence actually whether or not I should play Rakdos or if I should be playing Jund Food. This was mostly down to the fact that the Jund version was so much more popular, and usually when you see that there's got to be a good reason for it. So on the Thursday night before the tournament, I'm looking out for advice and I get a bunch of messages, a few messages from Seb Hart. Rakdos is kinda his thing, and he's been playing a lot of Rakdos. So he has plenty of good advice for me, some of which I ignore. But the main thing I get away from his advice is that I should definitely be playing Spawn of Mayhem. So on the Friday morning I buy a playset of the card, and I enter the Players Tour qualifier that's being held. Now in this tournament I lose the very first round, which was a bit of a bummer because it was actually playing against Wilderness Reclamation, which was a very good matchup I felt like. So that was a bit of injustice. But then I battled back and I won the next 5 matches in a row. So I ended up 5-1, which wasn't quite enough to get into the top 8 because my breakers were bad from losing that first match. But I did win myself 2 buys for the main Grand Prix event, which was awesome. I was also saying to myself, man, this deck has definitely got what it takes to bring me into a high performance in the Grand Prix. So I decided to stick with it for Saturday. So the next day I turn up to the convention centre and I have 2 buys, so that lets me wander around and do a little bit of scouting. I went around about 2/3 of the tables playing in round 1, and I saw a little bit of a trend. So this Grand Prix was taking place on the same weekend as a Mythic Championship, and the decklist for this Mythic Championship had actually been released a few days prior. This means that people had been doing a little bit of net decking. So in this Mythic Championship there ended up being pretty much 0 aggro decks, and a lot of very greedy Simic Ramp Flash combo decks. There was also a decent amount of Jeskai Fires and plenty of Jund Food. This presented to me a little bit of an opportunity because Rakdos Sacrifice is actually quite an aggressive deck and can kill on turn 5 maybe? With all these dirtly mid-rangey rampy decks that can just get run over by aggro, the field was a little bit primed for me to take it over. So because of that, my day 1 performance was actually really awesome. I ended up going 7-1, and my only loss was to Jund Sacrifice, in which I was 1 short of lethal 2 games in a row. So a very close game. So my wins include 2 buys. My round 3 was Jund Sacrifice, which I beat in 2 games. My round 4 was Mono Green Stompy, which I managed to beat in 2 games. Round 5 was against Blue-White Control, which I beat in 2 games. And then I lost round 6 against Jund Sacrifice. Round 7 was also Jund Sacrifice, which I beat 2-0. And then round 8, the last round of day 1, I beat Simic Ramp Flash. This was an amazing result. The feeling of knowing that you're locked for day 2 in round 7 out of 8 was pretty amazing. And then ending up winning round 8 and being in a really good spot for even top 8 at 7-1, that was definitely higher than any expectations I'd set for myself. Now we got to play our first round of day 2 on that Saturday afternoon, and I ended up losing that one. It was against Simic Flash Ramp again. Now despite this loss, I was still feeling pretty good about myself, and I was just so high on life about making day 2 for the first time. So I show up the next day, and this is when things start to get tough. So I actually lose the first 2 matches of the day. This was versus Jeskai Fires and then Is It Flash. 2 matchups which I really don't like that much. Is It Flash is winnable, but you really have to edge them out. You have to make every move count. And Jeskai Fires, the main problem with them is they have a sweeper followed up by a combo kill, which happens a lot and it can be quite frustrating to play against. So counting the match that I played on Saturday evening, I have just lost 3 matches in a row in my first day 2. And this kind of starts to kick in like a little bit of salt. Now this is when a skill that a lot of Magic players actually struggle with came into effect, and it's one of those things that I've been really trying to improve myself with a lot lately, and that is recovering from bad beats and preventing you from being overwhelmed by salt. Now at the end of round 11 I was 7-4, and at this point I'm knocked out of top 8 for sure, but I can't let this fact take over my brain and distract me from playing and trying to make the most out of my day. So I think to myself, I can still top 16 if I keep winning from here, and that's still quite a good decent chunk of prize money. It'll be my best result ever, so it was definitely worth aiming towards and forgetting about the whole last 3 rounds and all those bad beats. And sure enough, I turned it around. Round 12, faced traditional Simic Flash, won that in 2 games. Round 13, played against Jeskai Fires, I beat them in 3 games. And then round 14, I played against Bant Ramp, and I won that game as well. And the final round, playing for top 16, for that extra bit of prize money, playing against Golgari Food, and I managed to win that game as well. So I turned my 3 loss streak into a 4 win streak. With a final record of 11-4, I was absolutely ecstatic. In my first GP Day 2, I managed to rally back from a morale destroying loss streak to win 4 rounds in a row and get top 16. I actually ended up in 12th place, which feels pretty close to top 8, but in reality, as I said before, I was knocked out pretty early into Day 2. Most of my losses were pretty close things though, and I even made some mistakes along the way which might have made a difference. I hope to continue this streak of great results soon, but here down under it's hard to find big events to play in. So what did I learn from playing in this tournament? I guess you could say that I definitely learned how to come back from tilt, and especially when playing under pressure, which is a really awesome thing to know. I also learnt you should definitely listen to Seb Hart, although not all the time. Seb, if you're listening, I still don't like Light Up the Stage in the deck. I just don't think it fits the mana curve. Not saying it's bad, I just think there's too many 3s in the deck. And lastly, I think the thing I learned the most was that Rakdos is a great deck in Standard right now, and especially with all the new cards coming out in Theros, it's looking like it's here to stay. So watch out for some other cheeky videos we might be putting out which are highlighting this deck. Oh, and lastly, as a side note, I mulliganed to 5. It was one of my many mulligan to 5s, but anyway, in one of my rounds against Is It Flash, I mulliganed to 5 in game 2, and I'd lost game 1, so it was a pretty brutal mulligan. Anyway, when my opponent was shuffling up my deck, he goes, "I'm sorry," as in like, yeah, you're in a pretty tough spot and this matchup seems pretty close, so mulling to 5 is a bit of a deal breaker. Which is kinda true, but I actually ended up winning that game. Yeah, I just duressed him a bunch and played a couple of Mayhem Devils and beat him down, and that was it. He died pretty quickly. So, to that opponent, yeah, sorry I beat you so hard. So that's all there is for this edition of Table Fables. If you liked what you saw, give us a subscribe and also a like on Twitter. Be sure to be on the lookout for more videos coming up from me very soon. More info to come soon, but I'm looking to be uploading videos a lot more frequently on this channel. Anyway, that's all from me today. See ya!